I'm your host Safee Shah, the CEO at Byte. We have here with us Kamil Khan, the COO at Mitchell's, and this is Daftarkhwan fireside. There are a couple of reasons I'm very excited to be hosting Kamil for the fireside. And I'll list a couple of reasons. One is that Kamil and we had our paths cross a few years ago. I was at Uber. Kamil was at the PCB. And we were one of the sponsors for PCB in 2018, I believe, or 2017. Yeah. And that was my first glimpse into how PCB operated and Kamil and their team operated as well. As a viewer on television, it seems like a cricket match, but behind the scenes, I happened to be in the stadiums in Lahore, in Karachi, in Dubai, Sharjah, and you got to see how PCB was operating, and it was like a startup. The hustle that was going on, the day-to-day challenges these guys were working with, trying to figure out where to host the next match. That felt a lot like a startup, and I could see that DNA, across Kamil's profile, which is what seems to have brought him to Mitchell's as well, and we'll talk about that in a while. The second reason I'm very excited to host Kamil today is Mitchell's. So it's a brand that a lot of us have grown up with. And I consider myself as a pro user or a pro customer of sorts, because of two unique experiences that have etched Mitchell's in my mind. One is an opportunity to visit the plant a few years ago and really seeing how the 100+ products are made, and the process is fascinating. Every time you use Mitchell's product, I now get to visualize how that must have been made in the factory. The second is my childhood experience. I was probably 8 or 10, and I drank a full bottle of ketchup.
Oh God!
It felt really good initially, but it was so much ketchup, that you guys can imagine what must have happened. So those are two things because of which Mitchell is very close to me. Daftarkhwan for the last 6 years has been building a co-working community for professionals, for entrepreneurs who come together at all of the Daftarkhwan sites across the country and solve exciting problems and work on some of the best ideas in Pakistan. This community across the country has now grown to hundreds of people spread out in multiple Daftarkhwan locations, and all working on scaling up and figuring out exciting problems. Through these sessions at Daftarkhwan Fireside, we get to learn from some of the most brilliant minds in the industry and unlock their expertise to help shape up how our journeys are kind of defined and how we're working on some of the problems that we've set out to do. As part of Mitchell's, Kamil has played a key role in revitalizing the Mitchell's brand and the value that the brand represents for the company, its stakeholders, but more importantly for the customers as well. In today's session, we're going to focus on Kamil's journey, his thought process as he navigated multiple exciting steps in his career, and then also all the challenges and opportunities that he's seeing as he revitalizes Mitchell's as a brand. Greetings, Kamil.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Safee, and for the lovely introduction.
Before we get into the brand side of things, I think everybody here and myself, we want to hear more about that journey. It's very rare that you come across such a diverse set of experiences, from food and FMCG to sports, and now producing food, with a local brand that we all know of. If you could tell us about that journey, some of your experiences, your accomplishments, and also shed some light on your thought process every time you were making a rare but exciting move into a different industry altogether.
So I think the journey started about almost 2 decades ago, and everything that Safee has just informed you about, why am I a communications person or a brand person, is that because I love telling stories, or I love creating stories. That has been my passion point, and my career started with film and documentary making. Back in those days, it didn't pay a lot. So my mom said that, what kind of a person are you? You wear shorts and you go to work. What kind of a professional would you become? Why don't you wear a tie and a suit? I was like, okay. So I joined a bank and I did 14 days of work over there. And that is the point that I decided that this is not for me. Maths and all of these things don't work out. Fortunately or unfortunately, that's precisely what I'm doing today. I look at an Excel sheet every day. But during that course, everything that I've done is because I wanted to, I got opportunities to tell great stories, be it Wateen, be it Nestle, amazing brands that I worked on. Moving from there into the cricket board and launching Pakistan Super League, I think that has been a wonderful journey for me. Um, and then, you know, in the entire process of telling these stories, building brands, you get the opportunity to experiment, fail and then learn and then reapply. I think that has always kept me on my toes and has been a very exciting journey so far. In between, I've tried to, run little companies, little concepts, as we call them, startups. Failed every time. The last failure that I had was right before COVID, when I was about to launch a sporting event, a sports brand, and then COVID happened. So the good part is it gave me 2 years to, reprocess everything. So inshallah by September, October, we'd be launching that again. And in between comes Mitchell's, a beautiful challenge. The challenge is and was to revamp the entire brand, a legacy brand, good almost 90-year-old brand, generation to generation, has been there, served so many Pakistanis, from memories like Jubilee to chili garlic sauce to squashes, etc. So far, it's a lot of stress, but I'm loving it.
Personally, I'm very intrigued about your experience at PCB, so maybe if you can spend a few minutes there. What came out of the PCB in the last many years, the PSL, and the massive success that it had, what was the secret sauce behind that? How did you guys operate and navigate all those challenges?
The most important aspect when I reflect back is the leadership which enabled and allowed us to do what we believed in. That's where it all started from. But when I came, the biggest challenge was that how are we going to launch a brand which is, again, has to go back and connect to the youth at a lifestyle standpoint, and generating revenues through digital. When PSL was being launched, a lot of people don't know, not a single TV channel had faith in it. So this is not going to work out. So frankly, when you put up a startup and you go for funding, they say, buzz off. This is not going to work out. We faced the same thing, and then we worked on a completely different model. So generally in sports, what happens is that there are the sporting TV channels which pays you to run their content, which is cricket. In this model, it was a media buying house, an agency, which invested and they put their faith. So a lot of credit goes to them. Fearlessly, we moved on and we built this amazing brand, which is now over a $500 million brand from an equity point of view.
Yeah, I could see there's a lot of uncertainty you guys are dealing with, and was a ton of kind of I guess navigation that had to be done on a day-to-day basis. Yes. That probably, I think, is something a lot of startups here also have to do. Any advice to the startups on how you guys navigated?
I think it's important to understand the challenge that we had at hand. The entire human resource machinery that was working, from cameramen to crew to people on ground to producers to directors to everybody, they were not Pakistanis. Can anybody guess where they were from? No guesses? Indians. Correct. They're all Indians. So you can imagine what happens when Pakistan and India goes at war. Patriotism. So one fine day they decided, we're not going to work for you. And this was right in the middle of the series. So point number 2 that I'll put on record is, who saved us? Indians. So, you have to put that faith. You have to be very, very persistent if you talk about lesson. You have to make sure that, you're constantly reevaluating every single scenario when you're in a fix, in a position. When in your own business or in your own startup, you face a problem, look for a solution provider. That's very important. And time is of essence when you do that. So this is one lesson that I'd say that,
When you decided to come to PCB from Nestle, again, a very different move. You don't really expect that. And then similarly, the thought process going from PCB to Mitchell's now.
Okay, let me be honest. I'm not going to give you a corporate statement or anything. Frankly, I was bored. Um I was doing the same thing again and again and again. There was no augmentation of things that, I mean, working on 22 brands with Nestle, setting up a digital acceleration team, unit, everybody understood what's happening. The big question for me was what's next? Over a cup of coffee with a friend, he was talking about his problem. I was a solution provider. I said, hire me. They said, okay. And that's how I went to PCB. Not knowing what the challenge is going to be.
And this was before PSL became big,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely. It wasn't a catch for me. That there's something big. There's a big brand that I have to go for. It was a cricket board, and a lot of people actually discouraged. They said, "Why are you going? Are you crazy? You're going to a sarkari adara. How are you going to survive? You're coming from the corporate field." I said, "I don't know, but sounds interesting." Bitches was a very planned out and a thoughtful move. I was right after PCB we launched. I don't know how many people know this, but maybe you might have watched PSL and Kabaddi on that channel. It's called B Sports. So I made that brand. It became one of the biggest online Pakistani sports channel, and I was doing a lot of freelance work. So I did Kabaddi World Cup for Pakistan. We won, so that was great. Launching channel, doing a lot of content, revenue generation. And obviously when COVID happened, sports just kind of, died down. Super Bowl ended, Olympics didn't happen, cricket was gone, and all of these things. So in that process, I was doing a lot of other things. And then this opportunity came, and then I got on to Mitchell's, not knowing that there is a lot more that I have to deal with.
in both of these decisions, was there a future vision, something a lot of startups have to deal with? Initially, there's just an idea on a paper and you're trying to sell that to everyone. And you have a lot of naysayers, it's kind of like pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
Yeah.
Maybe some experience at Mitchell's when you came in and you saw that, the company needs to go in a slightly different direction. How did you navigate that challenge?
So before I answer that, I mean for the audience at large, when we speak about Mitchell's, how many people do you think we work with? How many employees do we have? Any guesses?
8,000.
8,000. Any other number?
200.
Okay. Any one last guess?
3,000.
We work with about 175, including the factory. So we're super lean. We're absolutely lean. And that 175 people make 190 products, which includes factory people. And if I include labor, we go up to max 500, which is not our direct employee. So imagine that we already are working with a startup mindset. Now, you spoke about how to pull that rabbit out of the hat. Every time that I have to launch a product, be it a candy, be it a chocolate or anything, it is exactly the same life cycle that I have to go through that a startup does. Convincing, funds, money, right person, who's going to do it, how we're going to do it, where is the consumer, are we even doing it right? All of these challenges, pop up. But here is the way forward to it. You put a process to the entire madness, which is very, very important. And you stick to that process. So when you're giving birth to a product, you have to nurture it. You have to have the right people for it. You have to be very, very clear about who you're going to sell it to, how you're going to position it from a brand point of view, how you're going to market it. So a lot of people often do get confused between branding and marketing. They're two different things. And how you're going to really, really fulfill a consumer need with that. So when you have all of this process in front of you and you answered every single question, I think that's where you take the next step. And more clarity that you add, people get more convinced.
Marketing to operations, again, a big shift. How did you get out of that comfort zone and wear a different hat?
I think that's probably one of the most difficult things that I've done. You know, when you do 20 years of brand storytelling, marketing, and suddenly you have to understand how a machine works, how do you procure vegetables and turn it into a product. When I took this responsibility, frankly, I was very, very, very scared. I was not sure that if I'm really going to, cross this bridge. How did I do that? I mean, it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of pressure when you don't know and you're responsible for so many things. Marketing was not a problem because I'm still looking at marketing, and I, said, okay, what do I know best right now? Okay, if I know something, if I have expertise, let me take that load off and pass it on to people, build them into experts of their own area. And that's what I did in phase one. I marked out who are the experts of their own work, enable them, give them absolute liberty, but also learn from them. So I did not try to be Mr. Know-it-all. I said I was very vocal, and I'm still vocal. If I don't know anything, I say I don't know it. But I'd love to learn. So you should not shy away from learning, asking, spending extra time with somebody who's already a subject matter expert. That's what I did. I learned from the people, and I was very open about it. Listen, I can set a strategy for the company. I can create that pull for your brands and your products. I understand the push, but the part in between, the process, is something that I will learn with you. So that extra effort of actually going and standing at a plant, working with an operator to a JC worker to a floor manager and all the way to the factory manager, living with them, and that's how I learned. You really have to jump in.
This is a good segue into the people aspect of things. It's such a large company, you're bringing in a strategy and a new vision, but to navigate that company, I think there's a lot of dependence on people. How did you get everybody on board and point all of them in the same direction?
The question is easy, but the answer is not. Working with people is probably, what I've understood over time is that working with people is probably one of the most difficult things, because everybody in this room right now has a very different thought process, and it's an individual thought process. And that's where the leadership role comes in. And that's what we precisely did. There is a buy-in from everybody. The process is that you take everybody's buy-in, you talk to people, but then once a strategy is in place, when everything is in place, the challenge begins: how do you cascade? And cascading that strategic goal is something that is a different language for different people. So for example, if you say from a strategic standpoint that I'm going to be a $1 billion company, okay, as an owner of your business, you say that I'm going to be a $1 billion company by, let's say, in the next 5 years. For you, it is one node and one language. But the person who's, in your case, the person who's delivering the food, does he understand that vision? He would not understand 1 billion in 5 years, because he has different sets of challenges. Now you have to really translate that vision from his perspective, and that's where the effort is. And the next big challenge always is how not to lose them. And that is something that I'm still learning, how not to lose people, because there's a lot of churn. We have bigger competitors. We teach them about 190 products, and suddenly they just go to another place, but that is okay. But that remains a challenge to be solved. So yes, people have this kind of a mindset.
Coming to how you're foreseeing a revitalization of a heritage brand and making it super contemporary in your capacity as the COO, what's the plan? How are you thinking about it? And what can we as customers maybe expect in the next 5-10 years as well?
See, the first thing that we had to do was that the brand had been silent for decades. We changed the entire look of the product. We wanted to go and connect back to Gen Z especially, because they're the future mothers and fathers. The millennials who had experienced the product but had kind of forgotten about it. We tried and continuously doing that is to connect the brand and trying to inculcate this thought that how can we make you feel happy. As a heritage brand, I think the biggest challenge that we faced for the first 6 months was how to crack the heritage part and actually make it more relevant to the customer. And it wasn't like a day's job. It took us about good 5-6 months to crack that. And the third thing that we're doing is we're making and working on products for the younger generation. And they love confectionery, they love chocolates and candy. So we're innovating in that. And one simple example that I'll give you is, because you've chucked an entire bottle of ketchup. I don't know why you did that, but
Brand love.
Brand love probably. But see, if you go 30 years back, the ketchup that you were the reason that you used to use ketchup was for either have it with a burger or fries, you know. Today, look at the way that the whole product shelf has changed. Frozen food has come in. Tomato ketchup is one part, but now you have sauces. You have peri peri, you have so many other sauces that keep on coming. Because the consumer constantly wants that change and they want to have something new in their life every other day. So we have to now move away from product-centric to customer-centric. That is how we're revitalizing.
In terms of the operational innovations that are required for this revitalization and for the brand to stay contemporary, how is that panning out and what is needed?
So because you know, I'm looking at the operation side, which is you know, looking at the entire process of making the product and taking it to the shelf. We had to do a lot of working and digitization on pretty much every part. So a company which was putting things down on a register and not moving beyond an Excel file was taking a lot of time, a lot of errors. Data authenticity was literally negligible. I mean, it was nothing. So with all of these challenges and having unauthentic data as a legacy, we had to digitize 3 core areas. The first one was introduce an ERP system. So everybody is accountable and transparency starts to come into the organization. Second was the digitization of the sales network. So we worked with a local startup, local company. So we looked at a lot of solutions. Third thing is the human resource part. That also had to be digital. So this was, these are the 3 core pillars that we're working on from an operational standpoint. Data is very, very, very important for organizations in these days. They're literally the eyes and ears on ground. That's how I look at it. And then the other thing is that, you know, cost element also. We were taking a lot of time. There's a huge turnaround time to process everything.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the branding challenges that companies are facing today and how can they overcome these challenges?
What I see now is that brands are trying to really crack the Gen Z mindset. And the Gen Z consumer is so fast that by the time you write a creative brief, they've gone into some other direction and you're like, what did I miss? So what I've seen over, let's say in the past 1 year is that everybody started to look more or less the same and still unable to crack it. We faced the same challenge when we launched one of the products called, it's chocolate peanut bar called Kick. We faced the same challenge. By the time we literally had gone into a creative ideation session, we realized that, you know, there is a huge aspect of or a platform that exists and we were completely missing it out, and that was dance. So we had to re-strategize and we had to go back. That delayed just the launch of the product by 3 months. So this is what is happening in the brand universe. I think the other element is that we are missing out on great insights. I feel that the insight part is kind of weak.
Where do you find the inspiration, that you need to be creative at work?
I think it's people and conversations and traveling for me. Trying to understand different cultures within Pakistan. And that's again something that I put it in the hindsight and use it whenever I'm traveling, whenever I'm meeting people, whenever I look at some great startups and great products. I try to kind of deep dive into it, and they give me a lot of inspiration that how somebody's thinking. I mean, some of the startups that I've been looking at in the recent past, just amazing. I'm so happy to see some great stuff coming out of Pakistan. And I think to myself that, why did I not think of it? Because that's a solution for my problem. So it's amazing that what I get to see.
With that, let's have a few questions from the audience.
I think what you are asking is something that we worked very, very hard on. And it was a long journey. Let me break this down for you. We thought that, heritage is very easy to sell. And I was sitting with my marketing team and I asked them, what is our culture? Pakistan का culture क्या है? किसी ने कहा जी हॉस्पिटैलिटी बड़ा है और फलाना है नहीं है. मैंने कहा यू नो व्हाट, हमारे तो घर घर का कल्चर फ़र्क है, एंड वी आर सो माइक्रो कल्चर्ड, so it's very difficult to play on that because I will be disconnected instantly with somebody. Moving from a heritage brand and a legacy brand into how to revitalize and make it more relevant today is one single thing that we have lived through. The brand has lived through generations. So Mitchell's as a brand has been on the table when your grandfather was there, when your father was there, today you're there, and tomorrow your kids are going to be there. So what we've done is we've nurtured generations. And the big idea that we came out was a whole lot of love. And that's what we've done. Our heritage is nurturing. We've nurtured your breakfast, we've nurtured your food in the evening, be it your french fries, be it your nuggets, be it your burgers, at night, in the evening, in summers. We've been everywhere. And that's what we've brought to you on the table. Nurturing through generations. So that is where we are swaying away, and that's what we're now talking about. I'm sure you've heard the term micro-influencers. Everybody has. With micro-influencers, there are micro-passion points. And this is specifically I'm talking about from a brand marketing perspective. So micro-passion points need to be served. And they need to be served with a whole lot of love. That's what we believe in. My father used to love Old English marmalade. He definitely doesn't want to shift away and do something else. But the Gen Z is probably not even interested in having a jam in the morning. I mean, they have a very, very different lifestyle. So I have to create those products, fit them into their lives, and connect at a brand level to them and feed their micro passion points. There are two ways of looking at it. One is that, even in startups, even in big, small companies, you diversify with your product range, but your hero seller is completely different. So I'd make it more relevant from a food perspective that, from your menu, your biryani would be the hot seller, for example, versus your nuggets. But you need to diversify. There's a bit of chunk of that consumer and a basket that you need to fulfill. Similarly, we also have a range, but across Pakistan, the biggest seller remains ketchup. So for now, the way that we're looking at our challenges, we need to focus more and strengthen our low-hanging fruit, which is ketchup itself, and build on that strength, and then fill the basket with other ranges. I mean, our peri-peri sauce is brilliant. And our barbecue sauce is also brilliant because these are the next two big things that we see growing. Now we don't want to. We want to go back to the same model. Yes, you're absolutely correct that kind of moved away and they went too much into grocery, um, expensive products, high price point, positioning the brand to a niche of a market. But we want to revive the confectionery business, and we're doing that very, very quickly. I mean, we've seen about 43% growth in a year. So yes, but that 1 rupee silver wrapping milk toffee is still hanging around. We haven't launched it because, again, we haven't cracked it in the best way. So we're holding it back. Since once we get the recipe right, we'll go back. The challenge is when it comes to products like these or anything that you make, even as a startup. When you're using ingredients, people, or whatever that goes into your business, which is an import, and when the dollar goes up, I mean, there's a lot of economics. You have to change the recipe. You have to change a lot of things. From the budding startups, what I've been following is Farmet, because it's more relevant to what we do, and Fatma's doing some amazing job on it. The way that she's managing everything, brilliant, great food product, great quality, great delivery. I think Byte is an inspiration itself. I know a few people who've actually opened. I was telling him that they've opened up a restaurant and they're experimenting and they're trying to work out that what goes in the kitchen and how can we also do something similar to that. So there are some great startups. Toss Down is another one that I've been following for a very long time. And the best thing about Toss Down is that those guys have really integrated data into the whole aspect. So you can actually look at the custom delivery to the pinpoint accuracy. So they're integrated maps on it. So some great stuff coming out of Pakistan. We're not shying away, and believe me, not a single corporate is trying to shy away from working with startups. There's a big problem. And the big problem with the startup is that every time I've reached out, and not that I've just done it at Mitchell's, I've seen Nestle reach out, I've seen when I was at an agency level, Bremers, we've reached out. So and even at a PCB level, we've reached out to startups. Now the problem is that every time we reach out, they're unable to sell the product, they're unable to sell how you're going to fix. I mean, from a front-end point of view, yes, they'd say that, we have a solution for you. When it comes into execution, either they run away, I don't know why, they don't come back and fix your problem, you're relying on them. Is it short-term thinking? So the only thing is that I'm sorry, but I am going to put this blame onto the ecosystem, that they need to be nurtured into doing the last mile delivery. That's where they kind of fail. It's okay. I mean, if you're unable to deliver and if there is a failure, let's learn together. They're shying away from that failure and not trying to do things together. That's my experience. Maybe somebody else has a different viewpoint. But I'm telling you, this is what I faced in 3 different organizations in a period of 9 years.
That's all the time we have today for questions. Kamil, thanks a lot for taking time out from your busy schedule and sharing a wealth of advice with the team here. This was very useful.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I think it was a great audience. I loved our conversation today. And, I hope and look forward to a lot of more sessions that I can probably sit down and watch whenever there's one uploaded. Thank you so much.